What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy, Storyteller Jet, with another episode of the That's So Fire Talk Show. And today, we have a very special guest in the house. My man, Jared, here is going to be talking about his journey, being a pro wrestler now, like really impacting a lot of people with his business. Super excited to have you on the show, Jared.
Jet, thanks for having me, brother.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Let's do it, man.
We're gonna start by doing a quick introduction of who Jared is, and then we'll go dive deep in the conversation today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go, baby.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
So, yes, I'm Jared. And so what I do is I help men absolutely transform every single aspect of their life in a very, very short amount of time. All the internal conflicts holding them back, all the anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, all those things are holding them back from really being the best version of themselves. I run a business called Self Mastery for Men. I can help men transform in about 6 hours or less.
Wow,
And
6 hours or less.
6 hours or less. And it all came from my own personal experience trying to overcome my own challenges in life. So now I love helping other guys do the same thing.
Fantastic. Man, super excited to have you on the show. I know we've been talking about doing this for a minute now, so it's kind of really cool
Yes,
to have that day actually is here.
that's right.
Man, you have had like a really great start in your journey.
Mhm.
Obviously, there is a lot of like things that did not go according to plan,
Yeah.
but I'm excited to dive deep into the conversation because I know that's going to impact a lot of people. So let's start about talking about a little bit about your pro wrestling career.
Yeah.
So, what first pulled you into wrestling?
Well, so honestly, my grandmother only had like a couple of channels on TV. It was either Golden Girls, the news, or pro wrestling. So I chose pro wrestling, obviously. But for me, there was an autobiography that a wrestler made, and he was a rags to riches story. It was about a guy where he was the underdog. No one ever thought he was going to make it, but he made it to win the World Heavyweight Championship at Madison Square Garden. And I was 10 years old. I was looking for a role model. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So I never knew that personal development existed. I just thought if you want to help people, what you do is you wrestle or you go do a sport, you retire, you write a book or something like that. So I committed 10 years old. I'm like, I'm going to be a pro wrestler for WWE someday. And believe it or not, so a couple years later, it took me a while to get there. About a decade of my wrestling career took me to get there. But I wrestled for WWE in my hometown arena that my mom and dad used to take me to as a kid. And it was on my mom's birthday. There's 10,000 people in the audience. It was the craziest thing ever. And when I got back from the match, the head of talent development, he goes, "Hey kid, you got everything we're looking for. You know, I could hire you right now and you'd be a superstar." And I'm like, this is the moment you've been waiting for your whole life. And then he just took a second too long and he goes, "But I'm not going to do that." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he's like, "Because you hope that I hire you. You don't actually own the fact that you deserve to be here. I don't think I can teach you confidence." And right there, like that was basically the end of my career. It was really hard to get back into it from there. But I looked him in the eye and I'm like, "Look, I'm going to prove you wrong someday." But it's like, where does a pro wrestler go to try to find confidence? I've been doing this my whole career. You can't really learn it in the wrestling business. So that's when I got really into personal development, trying to figure out myself, right? Because a lot of wrestlers, what they do is they create a character or they create a persona, and it's really the best version of themselves. And I was like, well, what if I could be that version of me all the time?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. Man, so how did that rejection spark that personal development journey that you went through?
What that sparked in me was, it wasn't about the skill. It wasn't about the talent. It wasn't about was I good or not good. It had to do with my personal character, right? And I see that all the time now in business too. Like people might have all the best skills, the best resources, the best strategies in the world, but something holds them back. It's that 2 millimeter shift, and it's their mindset, you know? And what really that sparked in me was I go, he's not talking about my skill. He's talking about something about me. And this is showing up in my life, in my business, in my relationship, in every other area of life. So I go, I got to figure out what this is at the root and get rid of that.
Yeah. So let's take it one quick step back real quick. Obviously, it did not go by any chance for you to get to that level to, wrestle in front of like over, 10,000 people.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you did to help you get to that level?
To get to the WWE
To get
level?
to WWE.
It was really just showing up early, staying late, practicing, training. So this was actually the biggest thing that I got from wrestling. A lot of wrestlers, they want to be the best pro wrestler. So they think it's about the moves and the wrestling in the ring. And people will do it for 10, 20 years and never make it. And I remember there was a head of talent development one day. He came into the wrestling school that we all went to as a kid. And he goes, hey, I can't hire any one of you right now. He goes, because you're all great wrestlers, but none of you have the it factor. And what he said changed my whole mindset on wrestling. He goes, the best wrestler doesn't win. The best marketed wrestler that has the it factor wins. And that changed everything for me. So when I heard that from him at one of my tryouts, I stopped focusing just on the moves and the strategy and the skill. And I started focusing more on like, how do you market yourself? How do you promote yourself? How do you stand out from the crowd? And I see that's true in business too, where you might be great at business, but the best marketed business is the one that wins. Yeah. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, man, that's incredible. So now taking me through that, like you get rejected from that person that basically crushed your dreams.
Yeah.
So how did you take that immediately, and how did you bounce back from such rejection?
I was truthfully, for a couple of days I was crushed. More like a couple of weeks I was crushed, because it's well, here's the thing. Like, so with men, you have your purpose, right? And then also there's your identity. Well, when you're a pro wrestler, you do a sport like football or basketball or something like that, or even an occupation. It's not just something you do, it's something that you are. I am a pro wrestler. I am a football player. I am an electrician, or whatever it is that you're doing, right? And when you lose that, you lose your purpose in life, you lose your identity. And it's a recipe for disaster. And it's like all of a sudden, like all your future goes away. So I had to really figure out what's going to be next for me. And I had to figure out, well, what was it that wrestling was trying to provide for me? A couple of things. It would provide for me, income, it would provide for me money, but also it wasn't a desk job. It wasn't 9 to 5. I wanted to try to reinvent myself some way. And what I realized was, this whole wrestling thing, like it was about me becoming a better version of myself, me being more charismatic, allowing that version of me inside myself to come out. And I go, well, so here's an actual great example of this. If I can go back for a second. I had a match with a wrestler named Booker T. He was a very, very famous wrestler. I don't know if you've ever heard of him before. Booker T. He's a WCW World Heavyweight Champion. It was one of my biggest tryout matches of my life. And right before I went to the ring, my girlfriend called me up and told me that she broke up with me.
Wow.
And so I was crushed. But something really, really interesting happened. I was depressed backstage. But right before I went out through the curtain, I started slapping my chest like this. I started pouring water over my head. I walked through the curtain. I was the most confident guy in the world in the ring for 20 minutes. And then when I came back through the curtain, I went right back to being sad and depressed and upset about what's going on. But it happened so fast. I go, wait a second. I go, what was the difference between what was going on in the ring and backstage? I go, what if that character in the ring is actually the real me? I just haven't given myself permission to live that all the time. So what I started taking from wrestling was, I go, what if that version of me is the real version of me? Just bring it out there more in real life. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, mic drop moment. I feel like a lot of people could learn from that too, because a lot of people, when they're dealing with kind of stuff like what you just described, they kind of like throw themselves like a self-pity party.
Yeah.
But like if you can kind of really like reframe things, and that would work, really good for you, instead of like, really dwelling in those like bad moments.
Yeah. Well, I read a book called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. And he says something really great. He goes, Superman or Clark Kent? He goes, what's the alter ego? What's the fake guy? And he goes, well, actually, it's Clark Kent's the fake alter ego, because he's trying to fit in with everybody else. And so one of the greatest things wrestling taught me is it's not about pro wrestling. It's about, how do you embody your greatness? How do you claim your greatness? How do you discover that it factor that's inside you and bring that out full time? And now what I realize is that's no different than when I'm working with men, when I'm working with business owners, when I'm working with, husbands in their relationship. There's that everybody's got a gap in some way. There's where they are now, where they want to go. How do we get that version of you out and then condition it to be the real you every single day?
Boom. I love it. So now that you've got that rejection from that scout, what was next for you? What did you do next?
What I did next was, I was trying to find out what was next, first of all, because I lost my purpose, I lost my identity. trying to figure out what's going on, what's going to be next for me. And what I realized was the only reason why you want anything, by the way, not just wrestling, but the reason why anybody wants anything is because they think it's going to meet their needs in some way. And so wrestling for me was a vehicle to be able to make some money, to do something creative, to feel like I was important, to do something, because I loved storytelling. I loved, characters and things like that. So I go, what was I trying to meet with wrestling? And this might be like that in a career. Like, what's somebody trying to meet with the career they're doing? What are the needs they're trying to meet? And what I realized was I could get the same needs met by being in video production. So just like what you're doing here with the studio, I had a live events video production company where I was doing live events for sporting events, MMA, UFC Fight Pass, Ring of Honor wrestling, things like that. And I was producing a lot of the talent backstage. I was coaching them. I didn't realize I was mindset coaching the guys at the time, but I was helping them find their character, find their voice, and bring out that version of them that would eventually get some of those guys to WWE too. But I started running a video production company and helping train some of the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had the opportunity to work with some really incredible people, including Hulk Hogan,
I did.
RIP, Hulk.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience working with Hulk?
Man, so because I was wrestling in New England, I knew Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. And then I moved to Florida because I grew up in Massachusetts and I wrestled in New England primarily. And I knew Jimmy Hart from New England. And when I moved to Florida, I didn't know that many people. And I noticed that there were a couple of internships available and things here and there. I called up Jimmy asking for a reference. And Hulk Hogan needed a videographer for his webpage. So Jimmy made the introduction and he called me over and I was the video editor for Hulk Hogan's website for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And I got to meet him. I would go over there. I would film him. I would do interviews with him. It was it was a fascinating experience.
Yeah, I remember seeing you posting something about that at the time of his passing.
Yeah.
Showcasing some a little bit of behind the scene of things that you were filming with him.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, I saw you posted that like maybe a day or two after his passing. What was it like to kind of work with somebody of this caliber?
One of the things I noticed is he was a little bit on guard at first because, and this is just my perception, I think everybody wanted something from the guy. When you're that famous, everybody has something, either they want something from you. So he's very guarded. I always just respected him. He was a childhood hero growing up. I never wanted anything from him. So I never even asked for a picture from him, but I just wanted to be there. I felt like he didn't really know who to trust at times, but I noticed that he was always very gracious to his fans. I would see him at CVS, just, someone be like, oh my God, is that Hulk Hogan? He'd call up their mother on the phone at CVS and talk to them for like 10 minutes. So it was really cool to get that experience with him. But I never wanted to make it seem like I wanted anything from him. I didn't even tell anybody I was working with him until much later. Just my parents knew. And that was it.
Yeah. You can say a little bit, the same thing again right now, but I think some people would benefit from that. So I'm going to rephrase that question one more time. What was the biggest lessons that you've learned from working with Hulk Hogan?
I think the biggest lesson I learned from Hulk Hogan is when you work with someone from that stature, the best way to be is to just be there to serve them, not want anything from them. Because I think they're so used to everybody wanting something from them. Hey, can I get an autograph? Can I get this or that? If you're just there to be a cool guy, do your job, not wanting, they respect you more.
Fantastic. So now fast forwarding to later in your life, you had that video business, you got married, you got, a lot of things were going on with you, but I won't put up time you hit rock bottom. Can you walk me through that story? So what was life at the lowest of, what was life like at your lowest point of life?
It was brutal. So basically what ended up happening was I lost wrestling. My entire identity goes away. I'm trying to reinvent myself. I'm trying to start a business. I start getting into personal development to try to figure out what's next for myself. I end up getting married to my college sweetheart. I end up starting that video business. I start doing multiple six figures in the business. Things are going really, really well. The only thing is that I didn't know anything about business. I was a great artist. I was a great person, great at doing video. I didn't know profit and revenue was a different thing. I didn't know, I was a really great videographer that created a business. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I was doing these really, really big events, but I was because one of my clients was 80% of my revenue. And he was a national, promotion on television. And so when they went under, they stopped paying me. I ended up on the hook for all of the vendors, for all of the equipment, for all of the shipping things, cross country. I ended up being massively over leveraged. And so at the same time, I'm in massive debt now. And my wife at the time, she had alcoholism from, it was in the family, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. So I lost my biggest client. My wife is going through alcohol. She's going in and out of rehab now. And I'm trying to keep everything afloat. I'm a really good guy. Like, I'm trying to be there for her, but I'm going down with the ship, because I'm trying to rescue and save, and I don't really know what to do. And I end up stress eating like crazy. That was my comfort food, was I would just stress eat like crazy. And I ended up 80 pounds overweight. And I ended up close to 6 figures in debt. Just not quite, but just about. I was right there. And I ended up divorced, depressed, overweight, in debt. At the lowest point, I was living at my mom and dad's condo in St. Pete Beach. They didn't live there, but they owned it, so I could stay there somewhere. But it was an over 65 community, and I'm not 65. I had to hide with the lights off from the 80-year-old HOA lady, because if they knew I was there, they would kick my parents out. They wouldn't let them stay there anymore. So I'm like in my early 30s. I'm like, this is not where you want to be in your early 30s, especially when I had a successful business at one point, And I just finally got to this point where it sounds so trite, and everybody talks about this, but it's called the dark night of the soul, where you've tried everything, nothing works. And this was the most frustrating thing about it, Jet, was I knew all the personal development stuff. I had been to all of the seminars. I had gotten certified in every coaching methodology. I could recite all the quotes. Knowing better and actually executing on what I knew were two totally separate things.
Yeah.
And I finally hit that point where I'm like, something's going to change. It's going to change right now. No one's coming to my rescue. I've got to do this myself. And I said, you're more than this. This is not who you really are. You got to, if you're going to save yourself, you got to save yourself first, and you got to lead yourself first. And I made some really strong decisions that night that changed everything for me, and some promises to myself. But what I'll share with you is, like, it changed the core of who I was almost overnight. And my internal identity had changed. Now, it's not a get rich quick thing. If you want to lose weight, you got to go to the gym and eat right. If you want to make money, you got to go get clients. But because I had somehow cleared the internal blocks that were inside of me, I was no longer sabotaging myself anymore. So just like compounding, my results would compound over time. And I trace it all back to what I did that night.
Yeah. Man, this is crazy, going through all of these things all at once.
Yeah.
Going through divorce, going through debt, like amount debt, and then living at a place, like at your parents' place,
Yeah.
instead of your own place. For anybody that is watching this, what advice would you share with anybody watching this that might be hitting their rock bottom right now?
Yeah. So the one thing that most people look for is they look for the strategy. Like, what's the strategy? What's the magic pill? How do I get out of this? What do I have to do? Well, I'll tell you, that's probably not the best way to go about doing that, because chances are you already know what to do, but you're not doing it. So while you're not doing it, there's some internal conflict somewhere. Everybody knows how to get in shape. You eat less, you go to the gym. Everybody knows how to make money. You go get clients, or you save, or you do something like that. People don't do what they know how to do because there's an internal conflict. There's a roadblock. There's something in the unconscious, like a thorn, holding you back from really doing what you know to be able to do. And so what I always say to anybody is before you even try to change the external reality, go inside, find out what is it in me that's holding me back. And if you can clear the block internally, the rest will change. I'll give you an example. So I've been blessed now. I've been able to work with and coach for and work in the companies of some of the top personal development people on the planet at this point. And there's one guy that I work for. He has a 1-year-long mastermind. He teaches people how to start their business and grow and scale to a big amount. He's got the best business system in the world. Some people come in, they do multiple 6 figures right away. Some people do 0. It's got nothing to do with the content. It's got everything to do with their core program, if they believe that they're worthy or not. Basically, to boil this all down to it, it comes down to identity. Before it even comes down to the strategy, it's the identity. Who do you believe you are? And if you can change your identity at the unconscious level, everything will change almost instantly.
Yeah. So you talk about like changing your identity. Can you give me a few ways that you can change your identity?
Yeah. So there's the surface level way, which is like write it down on paper and do incantations and stuff like that. They've done studies on this. Incantations work if you don't have any internal conflicts. If you have internal conflicts and you do incantations, what it does is it reinforces it's not true, and it doesn't work that well, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to get rid of what's holding you back from believing you can be the identity in the first place. So I'll give you a story. Um, when I was at rock bottom, it's 3 a.m. at my parents' house, and I'm like, something's going to change right now. I go, well, what? I asked myself a different question, not what do I have to do? Because if it was about doing something, it was my health, my wealth, my relationship. Everything was a zero. It would be insurmountable to fix everything with a to-do list. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I go, well, I read a book called The One Thing. What's the one thing where if you do that, the rest of it becomes automatic, easy, or everything changes? So I started asking the one thing, what's the one thing I got to do? And I go, well, why am I stuck right now? Why am I not doing what I know? And the answer was, every result in my life is either because of something I'm doing or something I'm failing to do. The relationship I was in, it's not my fault. She was an alcoholic, but I chose to stay. Well, why would I choose to stay? My business, the guy went out of business. It's not my fault that he went out of business. I didn't hold him accountable sooner, and I didn't set the boundary sooner. I allowed it to get to that point. So why am I allowing these things? I go, okay, well, it's because of my beliefs. I don't believe that I'm not assertive. I'm not this, I'm not that. It's, okay, well, where do my beliefs come from? Well, my beliefs came from my identity. I am this, I'm that, I'm not good enough. I'm a fraud, all these different things. I go, where the hell did my identity come from? And I go, well, that must have came from my conditioning, early childhood, things like that. But I go, wait a minute. I don't have 1 ounce of DNA from my mom because I'm adopted, right? So I go, and I had a great upbringing. And I finally figured it out. I go, it's because of the adoption. Because there was, consciously I grew up with it. There was not a problem with it whatsoever. But unconsciously, in my nervous system, one of my first memories of life was being put up for adoption. Does that make sense? And so what that created was an unconscious internal identity that you're an imposter and nobody wants you around. And it didn't show up until much, much later in life. But all of a sudden, that shows up in business, that shows up in relationships, shows up in career, all these different aspects of life. So what I found, because I've worked with over 100 people now over the past couple of years, it's not always like that, but there's always some type of unconscious conflict somewhere, age of like 0 to 7 or something, where it's in you and it's holding you back completely and it's messing you up and it's holding you back from really being who you're meant to be. And if you can pull that out, everything will turn around.
Yeah. Can you share with me a quick exercise that somebody can go through to find out those subconscious level things that might be holding them back?
It's a little bit difficult because everybody's slightly different, but one of the fastest ways to do this, and I'd really want to do it one-on-one with somebody because everybody's a little bit different, but you ask yourself, what's most important to you in this area? So what's most important to you in business? Or so let me just back up for a second. Find the area that you're stuck in. And then what's most important to me in relationship, in career, in success, in whatever it is. And then so you're going to get a list of like 5 to 10 things. I was working with a guy, TEDx speaker, very successful guy, family man too. So he's successful, multiple 6 figures, TEDx speaker. He's got everything going for him. He didn't feel successful. He felt like a fraud. And I go, okay, what's most important to you about success? And he goes, so I don't feel like a failure. And so what we found out is his entire motivation to succeed was to avoid failure. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask yourself, what's most important to me in this area that I feel stuck in, get 5 or 6 things. It'll sound like success and progress and things like that. But why is that important to you? You might find out it's to avoid negativity, right? And whenever you're most motivated to avoid not having something, you get what you focus on. So all people's internal conflicts are, I want a relationship so I don't feel alone, or I want money so I don't feel broke. So they want something to avoid not having it, and it's an internal conflict as a push-pull. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah, that was a great advice. Love it. So for anybody that is watching this and wants to go deeper on that, this is your guy over here. And obviously he's dropping a lot of really great nuggets here. You touched on something very important. And I feel like a lot of people, as it relates to entrepreneurs, are dealing with that, which is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
What is the biggest advice that you would give to anybody that might be dealing with imposter syndrome right now?
The craziest thing is working with like hundreds of people at this point. Imposter syndrome has no limits. So I'll work with someone where, average guy, and they're like, man, I can't start a business because I'm an imposter. I never had success before. My family never had a business. I was just talking to somebody recently. He's like, man, I'm an imposter because I have 3 businesses. 2 of them make 3 million. One of them makes 1.5 million, but it's not 3. But my best friend, his father was the oligarch of Russia. So I'm not good enough. So what I mean is like the imposter syndrome has no limits whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? And everybody has it. Everybody's dealing with it. So what I found about imposter syndrome is it's only imposter syndrome if you're claiming to do something you can't do, right? It's imposter syndrome if you're a coach and you're making an offer and you haven't gotten the result before, right? All you got to do is help somebody get to that next level, like to turn around, bring them up the next rung of the ladder. It's only imposter syndrome if you're lying or if you haven't really done it before. But if you can really help somebody with something, that's not imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So one thing that I know that you teach a lot is around limiting belief that people might be going through. So what is the fastest way that somebody can dissolve limiting beliefs?
Yeah. The fastest way to dissolve a limiting belief is to not focus on limiting beliefs. Sounds counterproductive. I love that personal development is so big these days because it's needed. And the challenge is that personal development, especially on social media, it's become buzzwords. Everybody can tell you, I think I have limiting beliefs here and there, but what they don't realize is where they come from. You got to think of limiting beliefs as a tree. And I'll give you what I mean here in a moment. What people are most aware of is their general attitude and temperament in life. They're most aware of like who they believe they are, their identity. They're somewhat aware, so identity and attitudes and temperament. Then they're somewhat aware of their beliefs. Like you can probably think of like, hey, I have these beliefs, they hold me back. And they try to work on them, they try to do it consciously. But beliefs, if you try to change them consciously, just like you can control your breathing, right? But the second you get distracted, you go back to breathing on autopilot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can try to change your beliefs. Once you get distracted, they go right back. Beliefs are controlled by this thing called your core program or your values. This is your autopilot, okay? And your autopilot is controlled by all of the limiting emotions and conditioning from the past and significant emotional events from like 0 to 7. So if you look at it like a tree, your attitudes and your personality is like the leaves of the tree. Your beliefs are the branch, but this core program, these values, this autopilot is the trunk of the tree. So if you try to work on beliefs, but you don't get rid of the root, the beliefs are going to keep growing back. So I don't just work at the belief level. I want to go straight down to the root cause of what's causing it in the first place. And it's always an internal conflict somewhere in their unconscious autopilot. So when you clear that, automatically, like what I'll find is they'll come in, I'll find out what their limiting beliefs are. By the time we clear the autopilot, the beliefs have changed automatically.
That's incredible. Man, you are so knowledgeable about all of these, fantastic things that are obviously helping a ton of people successful. How did you get into it?
How I got into it was just an obsession with trying to figure out what's true and what's real and what actually works. When I was a kid, I was like in first grade, I said a really funny joke and nobody heard it, but then the kid next to me heard it and he said it out loud. Everybody started laughing at the kid. And I go, wait a minute. Okay, so there's something different about how I said it and how he said it. And he got the result. So I go, what separates people from getting results, right? And then when I was in wrestling, the best talented wrestlers in the world would take 10 years, wouldn't make it. Some new guy come in a year, 2 years in, make it WWE right away. I go, what's letting that guy stand out and then not other people? Like, it's not talent, it's not skill. So I was always obsessed with what makes someone stand out and get results that other people don't have. And then, so when I got to rock bottom myself, I was so determined to figure it out. And I said, if I can figure this out, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to help as many people do it as possible. So it's just an obsession about figuring out what's actually going on with the mind. How do things work? Like I love magic. Like I love David Copperfield. I wanted to see how the magician did his tricks. But to me, I wanted to find out how the mind worked. So just a deep study of trying to figure myself out, get myself out of my own pit, but then turn around and help other people do the same thing.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you actually help a lot of really great leaders out there, like with their speaking engagement. And I think one of them is Tony Robbins. Mm-hmm. How did you link up to be one of Tony Robbins' speakers?
Oh, this is wild. So I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but what's really cool about that is I'm a trainer for Tony. So at his events, Tony's one person and he's on stage and he's doing his thing and he's got 10,000 people there in the stadium sometimes. He can't give personal one-on-one attention to everybody in the audience. So they have people called the trainers that go there and they're available to the participants. They're available to the people that are going through the program. If they have questions, if they feel stuck, if they need something done, like a process done with them that they can't get one-on-one attention to, like Tony can't call on them, we're equipped with the tools, able to work with them privately or to get them back in the room or to get them in a good state or shift some things, right? And what they offer some of the trainers is they allow them, if they embody the skills, they invite certain trainers to go present on different content topics at some of the other events, right? So Tony has not just UPW Date with Destiny, has different events that he does. So because of my transformation, I think, and I've really embodied, I just don't talk about this, I really live it every single day. They've invited me to present occasionally at some of his events on transformation, turning your life around, and how to do it. So it's been a blessing, and it's kind of like pinch me, I can't believe it's real. But what I found out is because I'm doing this, I told you like I wanted to be a wrestler when I was a kid, but it was never to be a wrestler. It was because I wanted to help people. I read that autobiography, right? And wrestling, it's the stage, it's music, it's the crowd, it's all that stuff. What I didn't realize is wrestling was preparing me for this. Because it's just help. It's what I wanted to do.
Your biggest calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the biggest things that you see that most of the people that attend Tony Robbins events dealing with?
I don't think this is just Tony Robbins event. I think in general, what most people are dealing with in general is they've done the personal development work. And this is in general now. They've done the personal development work. People are evolved now. They've done the work. They've read the books. They've listened to the podcasts. They're aware of their problems. They know that there's something holding them back. But just because they're aware of it, they haven't made the change last. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And what I think they focus on is people focus on strategies and tools and what do I have to do? When really it's like, I've always heard the metaphor, it's like you have a bungee cord tied to your leg and a rocket ship. And you're trying to make progress going forward, but you got this bungee cord tied to your leg. Before you make progress going forward, you have to cut the cord that's holding you back. So a lot of the work that I do, it's like, well, I know that you want to make progress. What's holding you back from making that? Get rid of that, and then you're able to move forward, right? I look at it like a hot air balloon. People, with a hot air balloon, they got the anchors in the ground, they got the sandbags. They're trying to apply that fire to let the hot air balloon rise into the air, but they got all these anchors and sandbags holding the hot air balloon down. They got all the skills, they got all the tools. Well, no, let's chop all the sandbags off the side of this thing and let's let go of the anchors and let's get you to rise up, right? So I think the biggest thing is people go to personal development or they read books and they get the information logically, but they haven't embodied it emotionally and they haven't gotten rid of the root cause of the problem. And that's what's keeping people stuck.
Yeah, for sure. So you launched Self-Mastery for Men. Can you describe for me what that is specifically and why did you decide to focus on just helping men?
Yeah, so I figured, first of all, I'm a guy, I've gone through it, I can speak to it congruently. By the way, one of the most important things for me, one of my most important values is congruence and integrity. So when I was going through rock bottom, I had, I was dating my girlfriend and she's like, well, you have all these certifications in coaching and everything like that. Why don't you coach people? I'm like, how am I, like, do you want to change your life? Me too. I'm not going to do that. So it was massively important for me to actually get the result first before I coached anybody, right? So I go, I got to turn my own finances around. I got to turn my own health around. I got to turn my own life around before I turn myself out there to help anybody. The first thing I figured was I'm a guy. I've been going through a lot of stuff. I know what I've needed help with. I can turn around and help men. Eventually, it'll most likely turn into helping a lot more people. But for me, what I noticed is the three things were holding me back in life. Number one was I needed to master my mindset because a lot of my stuff, I was aware of my problems, but I was being held back by the unconscious. All these things from the past hold me back. So I had to master my mindset. The second thing, though, was I realized in my relationship, my last relationship failed with but why wasn't I setting those boundaries? Why was I tolerating that? I realized I didn't know the first thing about relationships or authentic masculinity. Masculinity, there's a mask these days where it's either they're hyper alpha type of thing, or they're super soft and spiritual and, don't step on any toes type of thing. It was so hard for me to find any authentic information about how to be a real authentic man that leads, that's attractive to your partner, that's genuine. And there's no real role models for that out there. And I'm like, so I got to really figure that out too. And then the third thing was, well, I know I have all this potential. How do I live that in my mission and in my purpose? So how do I bring that and like bring my potential into an everyday plan and get results? So there's three main areas. One was, how do you get rid of all the stuff in your mindset holding you back? Number two was, what is authentic masculine leadership and how do I embody that? And number three was, how do I live my mission every single day and create that in the world? And I think a lot of men have the same problems. And because I've solved it for myself, I want to help them with that.
You just shared about authentic masculinity. I can never pronounce that word.
That's all good.
Yeah. So how do you embody authentic masculinity, or however you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it? Masculinity?
Masculinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you repeat that in the question too, because I think that would be a really good information for some people watching this. So how do you embody authentic masculinity? And
So how do you embody authentic masculinity? One of the biggest things people think is that masculinity is about dominance and being domineering or being, really forward or alpha, right? But then also there's this pendulum swing where they're like, well, I don't want to be like that. So I want to be more nice and caring and more reserved and more. Does that make sense? And what I found out, it's neither of those things, right? It's not about domineering. It's not about being controlling. It's not about being a jerk, but it's also not being a super soft, super, easy to deal with guy either. Authentic masculinity, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's just unconsciousness, period. There's no toxic masculinity. There's no toxic femininity. There's just unconsciousness, period. And it's just people that are trying to do the best with what they have, right? Authentic masculinity in its healthiest form is the greatest gift ever to the person you're in a relationship with, to yourself, to the world, because what it really is, it's calm, it's centered, it's balanced, it has leadership, it's forward thinking, it provides, it protects, but also it's got a backbone too. And what I find is a lot of masculinity, either they have, a really strong backbone, but their heart's not online, or their heart's really, really online. They have no backbone whatsoever. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have your heart open and a really strong spine, that's like the best of both worlds, right? And that's what anybody would be looking for.
Yeah. You also touched on that too, and we talked about that a little bit a couple weeks ago when we chatted. How does someone know that they are trapped into the nice guy syndrome?
That's a really good question. So there's a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. I love this book. I think it's a phenomenal book. I think there's one challenge with it, though, is that it's really great at describing the problem. It does not do a great job of describing the solution. But what they talk about in the book is the nice guy syndrome is a fundamental belief of, if I overgive, if I do everything for you, if I'm a really nice guy and I sacrifice my needs, then that means I should be entitled to your love, your respect, your time, your this, your that. So the whole premise of the book is that being a nice guy is actually an overcompensation, and they call it a covert contract, right? Where you're actually giving to get something. And you'll see a lot of these so-called nice guys turn into not so nice guys when they don't get their way. And they start to throw a little bit of a temper tantrum. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But really, temper tantrums and all that stuff aside, what they found is that nice guy syndrome mostly comes from shame from the past of not getting your needs met. So for example, I was dealing with a guy I was working with him, and he was a people pleaser his whole life. And he could never really ask for what he wanted. He felt like he had to tiptoe walk on eggshells. I'm like, well, where does that come from? And I told you it's all the unconscious, because he's been trying to work, he's been reading all the books, he's trying to work on this thing, nothing's working for him. We found out that when he was like 3 or 4 years old, he was an only child. And then his parents had a daughter. And so he had a sister. And he remembered that like 3 or 4 years old, he was asking for his parents' attention. His new sister had just been born. They didn't give him the same amount of attention. And there was an unconscious decision he made. It was like, oh my God, I'm panicking. I need to overgive and overcompensate to get my parents' love again. And they ran to him. It locked in place, because so whenever you do something and it works, your brain locks the strategy in place. And then it keeps doing that on autopilot. It's like, oh, that was successful. And because it happened at 3 or 4 years old, he started running that strategy the rest of his life and was running on autopilot. So we had to find out where it came from in the first place, right? But On the other side of that, if you get rid of the shame, really, like an authentic masculine leader in a relationship, he knows who he is, he knows what he wants, he's calm, centered, and balanced, he's focused, he's direct, he's not tiptoeing around things, but it's the energy of ownership. Authentic masculine is the energy of owning yourself and your outcomes in the relationship in a really positive, healthy way, and then being someone that's competent and that can be relied on.
Yeah. You just touched on that about the unconscious. So my next question for you, how can entrepreneurs identify those unconscious block that's holding them back?
Yeah. So how can entrepreneurs identify the unconscious blocks holding them back? There's a couple of blocks that hold people back in general. And I think it's good to identify what they are in the first place. So the first block that holds people back is called an identity conflict. An identity conflict is, and you'll hear people say this, a part of me wants to do this, but a part of me doesn't. So that's actually a split in your identity where there's a version of you that wants to, a version that doesn't. You're fighting against yourself. You hear it all the time. I'll give you an example. I was working with an airline pilot one time, and he's the captain of the airline. So he's the man when he's at work, right? But when he goes home, he turns into this people-pleasing nice guy. He's like, I don't understand. Like, part of me, like, I know how to act when I'm on the plane, but when I get home to my wife, I become this mouse. I go, what would happen if you took the pilot home? He's like, I never thought about that before. I'm like, what if you were the same type of leader at work as you are at home? Like, competent, you got it handled. He's like, I never thought of that before. But there were these two different competing versions of himself. Does that make sense? I was talking to another gentleman. He was like, my parents got divorced when I was younger. He goes, when I was with my mother, I was one way. When I was with my father, I was with a totally different way. I was much more outgoing. And he never actually reconciled those two things together. So for the rest of his life, he's like, in some cases, he acts this way. In other cases, he acts that way. So he has this identity conflict. So the first one is an identity conflict. The second one, though, is a values conflict. So that would look like, I really value career, but I also value my family. And if I focus on my career, then it pulls me away from my family. Does that make sense? So sometimes things can have competing attention, and you want to make sure that all of these different areas of your life align and they're not fighting against each other. And then the third type of internal conflict, what I told you earlier, is there's a motivation conflict where the thing that you want, you really only want it because you want to avoid not having it, right? So I want success to avoid failure, or I want the relationship to avoid feeling lonely. Whenever your primary motivation is to avoid something negative, you get more of the negative.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great tip and so good. Um, you just touched on something about like the work-life balance that a lot of people deal with nowadays, like where they want to focus on family, but also they have the business side of things. So, what is your, I guess, biggest tip about work-life balance, and how is it even possible to achieve that?
You don't want work-life balance. You want something called work-life integration. And so what I mean by that is, like, sometimes there's going to be a little bit out of balance, right? But the reason why you want to be successful in business, if you go up to a high enough level, is the same reason you want to have a really successful family life. Like, I want to have a business for what purpose? So that way I can feel free and be able to do the things I want to do. For what purpose? So I can enjoy my life, right? I want to have a really great family. For what purpose? So I can have wonderful experiences with them and have a great life. So they actually don't have competing outcomes, right? So you want to integrate both of those things. They're not fighting against each other. They both want the same exact thing. But if you can find out what the higher level is for those things, a lot of times those things will integrate and they don't have to fight each other anymore.
Yeah. One things I'm very curious about, obviously you've grown from like learning a lot about, personal development, and you had all the different, um, you had all of the different, you had the knowledge about
Yeah.
doing that, but now you are helping people solve that by being a speaker. Um, can you share with me, and that's kind of, I don't think you were expecting those
Yeah.
questions, but can you share with me what are some of the biggest tips that you have for somebody that wants to pursue speaking? What are some of the biggest tips that you have for them to, increase their stage presence or their authenticity as it relates to, presenting on stage?
That's a really great question. So I'm a speaker, but I don't consider myself a speaker. I consider myself someone that just speaks from experience and is authentic and just shares where I come from. And I think everybody's so polished these days. And I think the audience out there, they're so used to seeing people, everybody's being marketed to. I think people have a really strong BS detector. And so it's not about like marketing to people or trying to sell people stuff or trying to convince. If you make it about your audience and how you can serve them and then relate it to your own stories, like people want real. People want relatable. So it's not about being the most polished speaker in the world. It's not about having the perfect words. It's can you move them emotionally and can they relate to you? So I would say like be as authentic as possible, be able to tell stories that also are able to move people that people can relate to, and don't tell your stories in a way to like tell your stories in a way where they have lessons that people can take away from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did you do anything along the way to help you increase that confidence, or to help you be more eloquent as you like, presenting those ideas to your audience?
That's a really great question. So this is what I would say about stage presence in general. A lot of people try to get really hyped up, really amped up. I got to get to this really, really peak state, this peak emotional state. What I found actually works best for me is getting in a calm, centered, and balanced state and just being the calm in the storm, right? And I think what really helped that was when I was in wrestling, you'd go backstage, you do a ritual, you turn yourself on, you'd be able to get into the character right away. But what I noticed for me is instead of trying to really hype myself up, I get really grounded. So I'll ground my legs into the ground. I'll feel like I got like cords going down in the center of the earth. I'll center my body, and then I'll feel like my heart's opened up. It'll come out through my throat, and then I'll have a wide focus. So that way I'm not super hyper focused, but I'll be like looking at the entire audience, and it gets me in a calm, centered, and balanced state, and I'm able to connect better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also really love the tip that you had about, being authentic. And I feel like a lot of people, they just kind of want to be the best at that. They want to be the Tony Robbins. They want to
Yeah,
be the Russell Brunson
yeah,
instead of being themselves. Like
that's
for
right.
me, that was a big like hold back. Like before even starting this show, I was like, oh man, this is not my first language. Um, you know, sometimes my questions might not come as clear as
Yeah.
I want them to be, but actually that become like a superpower. And for me, at least for me, um, kind of being as authentic as I
Yeah.
can be, because that's me.
That's a really good point. You just sparked something in me. Everybody wants to be Tony Robbins. No one's going to be Tony Robbins because he's who he is. Like he has his own life experience. He has his own energy. You know what I mean? Like he's got all the things going for him. But in wrestling, right? They're always trying, who's the next Hulk Hogan? Who's going to be the next Stone Cold Steve Austin? The next Hulk Hogan, they tried to make him. It never happened. The next Hulk Hogan was Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was a completely different guy. We want to make the next Steve Austin. The next Stone Cold Steve Austin was The Rock. The next Rock was John Cena, right? So I don't know if you guys know what wrestling is. These are all completely, completely different people, right? So the next Tony Robbins is not going to be Tony Robbins. It's going to be a completely different type of energy. Does that make sense? And the people that are attracted to one type of person are not going to be attracted to yours. And so the people that you're here to serve, they're going to be attracted to you for your unique energy, for your stories. They're going to resonate with you. And you'd be surprised. Like I'd go out there, I'd tell a story. I didn't think it related to anybody. And like these people that I wouldn't even think of, like all shapes, sizes, colors, ethnicities, you name it, like, oh my, that when you said that, that related to me. Like I would have never that felt like such a personal story, you know? So just be you, tell your stories, help people through your own metaphor, be an example as much as possible, and be authentic, and you're gonna attract the people that you're meant to.
Yeah. Earlier, you talked a little bit about the it factor. So, why do you think some people have the it factor and some other people don't?
I think it's because it's not trained. So you'll hear all these documentaries about sports stars or pro wrestlers or athletes or actors, and they just have the it factor. They were just born with something. So they make it sound like a really, really intangible thing. Does that make sense? But what I found is you can actually teach it because it's a state of being. The it factor is a state of being. It's confidence. It's charisma. It's being comfortable in your own skin, right? And the only reason why you wouldn't be comfortable in your own skin is because of beliefs and values and internal conflicts and stuff that's happened to you in the past and trapped emotions. And if we can get rid of all of the stuff inside of you that's telling you you're not good enough, you don't deserve it, you don't belong, or all these things holding you back, you can become much more comfortable in your own skin and then step out and then be who you're really meant to be. I think in relationships, especially too, like if you're able to be that authentic masculine version of yourself, like I think every guy wants to be the natural, where he's successful, where he's great with his romantic partner, he's got a great relationship, he's respected, he's loved, he makes the money, but he's got a great family too. Like everybody wants to have it all. It's possible. You just got to get rid of all the BS and the junk that's holding you back from doing that in the first place.
Yeah. Um, what is the biggest misconception that a lot of people have as it relates to personal development?
The biggest misconception people have when it comes to personal development is it's about strategies and then doing more and working harder. And what I found is you could have the best strategy in the world, you can have the best, ABC roadmap in the world. If you don't execute on it, nothing's going to happen. So instead of trying to focus on the what I need to do, because chances are you already know what to do, focus instead on number one, who do I have to become? But then what's preventing me from being that person in the first place? And so instead of going external and trying to do more, you already know what to do. Get rid of the internal resistance to you doing that. And that's going to get you so much further faster.
Yeah, I absolutely love that advice. And that kind of takes me back to one thing that I've learned from Myron Golden. He says all the time that you have to become for whom it would work for.
Yes.
And that kind of really focus about that external thing that you need to do, but internally kind of figure out all the things that you need to put in place, all the things that you need to grow to become that person for whom what you're trying to achieve will, become for.
That's right. They said one of the most powerful forces in the whole human personality is your identity. Because whatever you say, I am, you become. You believe yourself to be. But the thing is, your identity isn't even real. It's just the strongest held belief you have about yourself. Your identity is your identity because as you grew up, your parents gave you a name, you grew up in a certain area, you grew up in a certain location, your teachers told you stuff, you had certain friends, and your whole identity is just a grab bag of all these different things that happened to you. You didn't even choose it consciously. And then you're defending that this is you for the rest of your life. You can create your identity on purpose. Does that make sense? And I lost 80 pounds by just starting to say, I am a bodybuilder again. I got completely out of debt by saying I'm a wealthy person again, right? But it's not just saying those things, also clearing the stuff that's preventing me from believing that in the first place. But your identity is vitally important. And if you can change what you believe you are, the identity, the rest of it will start to come because you'll act in accordance to who you believe you are.
That was so good. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That was really good. One of the questions that I always ask everybody on the show is, what is the $1 million advice that you would give to an entrepreneur listening to this that is basically stuck in their own head?
Stuck in their own head? Like, give me an example of that.
Like they have that limiting beliefs. They have that mental block that is kind of really like preventing them to go to the next stage of their life.
Yeah. For an entrepreneur that feels blocked, what I would say is, first of all, there's nothing wrong with you. The only thing is that hustling harder is not going to get you to where you need to go. It's going to burn you out faster. A lot of times hustling, working harder, grinding. Here's what most people do is they go, I need to make a change in my business. I need to go work harder. And they'll do that for a while and they'll make some progress, but it won't work. It won't last long-term and they'll burn out. And they go, I need to get another strategy. I need to learn more. I need to get more skills. So they'll get a course, they'll get a program, they'll get a mentor, they'll do something and it'll work for a while. They'll stall again. And they go, it's because I'm not working hard enough. And so they start working harder and they go, I got to learn more stuff. So they're cycling, learning and doing and learning and doing and learning and doing. And they're stuck in this hamster wheel and then finally go, that's it. It's the business. It's the market. It's the relationship I'm in. They change businesses, change locations, change something. And they end up in the same situation again 6 months later in a totally different environment. It's because that's surface level stuff. What you want to fix instead is, number one, is the identity. And number two is all the beliefs and unconscious wiring underneath that stuff. So I am not like, I do believe in hard work. I believe you have to work hard and do things and take action. But I'm also a believer of working smarter, not harder. And instead of banging my head against the wall, I would rather find out what's the roadblock stopping me and remove the block first.
Yeah.
If you can get rid of that, then the progress will happen. But I want to find out what's holding them back in the first place.
Yeah. Now going back to your business, what is next for self-mastery for men?
What's next for self-mastery for men? I work with guys now where I do something called the 6-hour VIP transformation. So what I do is I sit down with people for 2 hours a day for 3 days, and we map out. It could work in your health, your wealth, your relationships, your career, an area that you feel stuck in that you want to make results in. And we go, okay, first of all, let's figure out what's the history, and we find out kind of what all the patterns are holding you back. It's not therapy. I just want to find out, like, you notice this right here, that relates to your relationship too. Like there's 3 to 5 patterns that they become your core program. Does that make sense? And that's day one. We find out what's really holding somebody back. And I can show you on the paper what your unconscious autopilot is and what your core program is. And you've never seen it before. And when you see it, you go, oh my God, like that's exactly why I'm stuck. It's so accurate. You could put it into an AI program, be like, what would this person's life be like? With a 99% accuracy, it's going to say like, this is what this person would be experiencing. It's that accurate when you get it.
Wow,
But
incredible.
that's day one. But then on day number 2, we do all of these different coaching processes and techniques to completely eradicate all the blocks we found on day 1. So we're talking about like limiting beliefs, your unconscious internal conflicts. We get rid of all of those things, those significant emotional events, that this thing happened to me when I was 7. We get rid of all of the blocks that are holding you back, not just mentally, but from the unconscious. So now it's no longer holding you back whatsoever. And then on day 3, what we do is we go, well, what do you want instead? Now that's gone. What's new for you? What do you want? We condition the new identity until it becomes who you really are. And I ask you some of the same questions on day 1. And what people find out in 100% of the time is their entire autopilot system has changed. And so it's like if you're driving down the road and you're going, one direction, you're going to end up on one destination. But if you change the direction, you're going to end up in a totally different location, especially 6 months, a year down the road. They've completely changed the trajectory of their life by the time that they're done. And it compounds over time because we're not just putting a Band-Aid on a solution, we're solving it at the root.
I love it. So now that you shared a little bit about what's next for you, what legacy do you want to leave behind with self-mastery for men?
I want to leave behind that, first of all, what happened to you in the past isn't set in stone. You're more than who you believe you are, and you don't have to be held back by the past. You can change anything that you want. You're not bound to suffer for the rest of your life. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't take 10, 20, 30 years of therapy to change. If you know where to look, you can change in a couple of hours if you know where to look. But I really want to let people know, like, they're not stuck and they don't have to suffer. Like, suffering is unnecessary if you know how to get rid of all of this baggage and these problems holding you back.
Yeah. Looking back over your life, what was the biggest lessons that has made the biggest difference for your life?
The biggest lessons that has made the biggest difference in my life, first of all, would be the fact that you can change instantly. So you can develop a fear, a phobia, a limiting belief in a second. Your brain can also undo it just as fast if you know how to do reverse engineer how your brain does things. So being able to change fast was one of the biggest things that helped me out. Number 2, I don't know where I picked this up from, but I just always had it, was instead of trying to force external results, I always went internal. I go, well, what is this telling me about me? So I would always go inside, try to clear the block internally first, and then tackle it outside. So I think number 1 is like realizing you can change anything. Your identity isn't fixed. And then number 3 is also, you can change anything. Your identity is not fixed. And then also, if you know where to look, you can change things rapidly.
I love it. So good. I mean, this has been an incredible hour just chatting with you. I feel like we could kind of go on and talking about some of the really great things that you had to share. For anybody that wants to go on a personal development journey, that want to transform their lives from where, they are to having a better life, what is the first step that they should take?
The first step they should take, first of all, is to know where they want to go, what they want to achieve. People will say, I want to be happy, I want to be more fulfilled. Most people know more about what they don't want than what they actually do want. And you go, well, what do you want instead? People can't tell you. So they go, I want to feel this way, that way, or the other way. I go, well, how will you know you've achieved it? I don't know. So what they have is they have all these concepts of wanting to have a better life, but they don't know what that is. So what you want to do first is like set the destination of how you know what happiness, success, achievement, relationship, what would that look like to you? because so many people, they just have this concept of what they want, but they don't know what would actually fulfill them or how they get to the finish line. So number one is know exactly what you want specifically, get clear on that, and then start to reverse engineer how to make that happen.
Yeah. Do you have a list of books that has made the biggest difference in your life that you would like to share?
Oh my God, a ton of them. So one of them was The Secret of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. I think that's a huge one. I loved No More Mr. Nice Guy was a really good book. It didn't solve the problem, but it got me aware of it. Another one was Masculine in Relationship. There was one called Happy Pocket Full of Money, which was about abundance and wealth consciousness and stepping into that. There's so many, it's hard to list them because I was going through, if I could read a book a week, that was my goal for a long time. So there's been so many of them,
Yeah.
you know.
What was your biggest takeaway that you've learned from a book?
Putting me on the spot here, huh? Well, it was more, it wasn't a personal development book. There are two books that I think are my favorite, and they're novels. One's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and the other one is called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And so in The Alchemist, spoiler alert, right? He goes on this entire quest to find his treasure. He finds the treasure. Things don't work out for him. He gets ruined. You know, it's this entire mystical quest of like going all the way to Egypt to the pyramids and stuff like that. And then he comes all the way home, and his treasure was right where he had left in the first place.
Wow.
It was right under where he had started. And it was like, well, you did all of that because you would have never seen the pyramids otherwise, right? So it's like what you needed was always inside you, but it's the journey is the destination type of thing. And the second one was Siddhartha, and it's by Hermann Hesse. And I love this book because every single chapter of this guy's life, he's a different version of himself. And he never stays the same too much, but he's always evolving. So he starts out, the way the book works is I think he's the son of, it's been a while since I've read it, but he's like the son of a Brahmin, or he's the son of like a religious leader in India. And so he's living a very sheltered life, but he's like living like a king. And he goes, but I don't know what the contrast is. So he gives up his life as a king and he becomes a beggar on the street. And then he lives that for a while. And then he becomes someone's like, well, I'm going to follow the Buddha. So he follows a Buddha around for a while. He learns enlightenment and all that stuff. And he goes, but I've never experienced what success feels like. So he became an entrepreneur for a while, I guess really successful. But he goes, but I never experienced a relationship. So then he starts a relationship. And so every single chapter of his life, he's learning different aspects of life. And it's like he's become a part of all that he's met. And then by the end of it, he's just been the symphony of all these things that he's learned, but he's never the same guy in every chapter. And it's just amazing how someone can always evolve. And I love that book for that reason.
I love it. From looking at you, you're like, very, fit, and obviously your knowledge about, personal development goes really deep. My next question for you is, what are some of the daily habits that you would recommend for somebody that want to transform their lives?
Yeah. So some of the daily habits to transform your life, I was at rock bottom. Things were so bad for me. I was like 80 pounds overweight, 6 figures in debt. I'm like, this is really, really bad. And I told you I changed my unconscious and I got to the root cause of why that was all happening in the first place. The first thing I said was, I go, you know what? There's things that are within my control, things that are outside of my control. There's things I can influence. I can't control how fast someone pays me if they owe me money. I can't control how fast I can do these other things. I can't control a relationship because it's another person. I can control what I put in my mouth and if I go to the gym. So I go, if I can take my health back, I can take back the rest of my life. So I go, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll try to hit the home run right away. I'm going to go to the gym for 12 hours a day, every single day. They'll burn out in a week, right? New Year's resolutions, they fail after 2 weeks. I go, I'm going to go to the gym for 5 minutes a day, twice this week. I made it so stupid that I would be a loser, not be able to do that. And then I would go and I'm like, well, I'll stay for 10. And so I started stacking wins. I started stacking dopamine, right? And so actually what it wasn't this big home run. It was doing these small little micro habits, making and keeping promises to myself long-term. I got out of 6 figures worth of debt by just basically saying every single dollar that comes in, I'm going to take 10, 15, 20%, set a percentage aside, never change it, and then put that in the savings, put that towards debt. And all of a sudden I'm out of debt and 6 figures in the other direction, right? But it's not these big, giant home run grand slams things sometimes. It's doing these small micro promises to yourself day after day after day that compound long-term. And it starts to build trust in yourself. And that's what I do.
I love it. As we are ending the talk show here, what is the number one advice that you would give to somebody right now that want to change their life?
The number one advice I would give to someone that wants to change their life is, first of all, is not what do I want to achieve, it's who do I want to become. Because the most important thing, it's, everybody wants to achieve all these different things, but really the value of what it is that you're looking to do is because you think it's going to make you happy, you think it's going to give you success, you think it's going to give you love or something like that. First of all, figure out, what do I want? But not only that, who do I have to become to be that person to achieve it? Because if you can match up the identity to what you want, then it happens so much faster, so much easier. But really, it's all about who you become in the first place. So what is it that I want? Why do I want it? Who do I have to become to get there? And then you start reverse engineering that. But the most important thing is you work on your identity.
Love it. For anybody that is watching this that want to learn from you or, work with you, how
Yeah.
can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So on the web, excuse me, if you want to get a hold of me, go on the web. It's www.selfmasteryformen.com, or I have a Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/selfmasteryformen. You can reach out to me there. We give content, we give videos, we give a lot of cool seminars and things like that. Give out advice. And if you want to check out the website, love to have you there as well.
Awesome. Do you have any upcoming release, like such as a book or such as like a webinar, such as a workshop that anybody could participate in?
Yeah, so I have a new program coming out. It's called the Unlock Your It Factor program. It's 7 days. It's an absolute primer on what you need to really take control of your identity, get rid of the blocks holding you back. It's like a half hour to 45 minutes a day. You just do it in a row. It stacks up. And then once you finish the 7 days, there's a bonus workshop at the end of it that shows you how to get rid of all your internal conflicts. So if you want to check that out, it's super easy. Check out my Facebook or my website, selfmasteryformen.com. There's all the details there.
There you have it. Bro, it was such a pleasure having you on the show. You provide so much gold nuggets over here. And I personally can't wait to go and watch it back because of all the great analogies or even tips and tricks that you've provided. And I feel like I personally could even use some of them. So I hope you guys found a lot of value in the talk show today. And don't forget to go to Facebook and his website if you are curious about what he has to offer or even his upcoming challenge soon. So thank you for tuning in. You know what it is. Let's go, baby. It's fire.